Hello, welcome back to RC Video Reviews. You're not going to believe what this thing can do. Today we're taking a look at the M8S Smart Charger by Toolkit RC. This video is sponsored by Banggood.com. They provided the Toolkit RC M8S for review purposes. If you're in the market for a Toolkit RC M8S, Banggood.com carries the full range of Toolkit RC products, including the M8S. Using my affiliate link and the coupon code in the description, you can get this charger right now for $39, which is a flat-out steal. We have a lot to cover in this video today because this charger is capable of so many different things. It's just going to take some time to get through them. But I'm going to break it up into parts. The first thing I want to do is cover the specs. We'll talk about the key metrics and measures for the unit. After that, you know what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to hook up some big batteries and we're going to punch this thing and see if it can deliver the 400 watts at 18 amps that its spec claims it can do. After that, we're going to go through the options in the menuing system, and then we are going to test all these different devices that this charger is capable of operating. So we have a lot to cover today. Let's get started. The M8S supports an input voltage of 7 to 30 volts at a maximum of 18 amps. And that 18 amps is a number you're going to see throughout the system. So whatever is going on engineering-wise, I'm pretty confident that 18 amp limit applies universally. The charger supports a wide range of batteries, including LiPo, high voltage, Life, and Li-ion in 1 to 8 cell formats. It also supports nickel metal hydride and lead acid in 1 to 20 cell for metal hydride and 1 to 12 cell for lead acid. A balanced current of 800 milliamps at 2 to 8 cells. Charge power is 400 watts at 18 amps peak. Discharge, here's the important one, the discharge power, and I'm going to talk about this too, 400 watts at a max of 18 amps in recycle mode. In normal mode, it supports 15 watts at 3 amps, and then it also has a USB port supporting 2.1 amps at 5 volts. Now, I want to tell you about this recycle mode real quick, and I'll show it to you on the charger. When you put the device in recycle mode, what happens is the battery that you're discharging feeds the battery that you're using as a power source. You got to make sure that you do not put this in recycle mode and connect it to a power supply. You can only connect it to a battery when you have it in recycle mode. Okay, the unit measures 98 by 68 by 35 millimeters and weighs 170 grams, and it uses a TFT 320 by 240 pixel full color screen, and that's one of the shout outs they have at the top of their product marketing, is that it's a true color display. The measurement capabilities of this charger are a little bit unusual for a charger, and that's what this stuff is all about. So it supports measurements for PWM, PPM, sbus, voltage, internal resistance, and an ESC, a watt meter. It's actually got a watt meter. That's what this is here for. And then on the output, you can also put out PWM, PPM, sbus, and this one blew me away. I could hardly believe my eyes when I saw this and realized what it was, but it's got a power supply. You can set it up to put out 1 to 30 volts and 1 to 18 amps in either constant current or constant voltage mode. It just blew me away. And then an overcurrent cutoff time of 50 milliseconds, so it shuts down pretty quick. The M8S also has a very simple upgrade process. They include a USB cable that lets you connect to the computer and upgrade the firmware. Very simple to do, nothing to it. I'll probably cover that in a subsequent video. We won't get into that in too much detail today. The first test I want to conduct is a full power charge. I'm going to run it at 18 amps all the way up to 400 watts so we can verify that the charger hits that rate. In order to accomplish that, I have two 6L5000s connected in parallel on this parallel board, and I've got a 6L5000 as a power supply up top. In order to hit the full 400 watt specification at 18 amps, you have to take 400 watts, divide it by 18, and that tells you you've got to hit at least 22 volt. The 5-cell batteries weren't going to do it. It had to be 6-cell. And with 4.2 times 6, I can run up to 25 volts. Okay, so our volts and amps formula is there. We need to be able to hit 18 amps and at least 22 volts. That'll show us 400 watts. I've got two 6-cell 5000s over here on the balance board, and I have to run them at 18 amps, which means 9 amps per battery. So I'm not going to run it for too long because that's just under a 2C charge rate. It'll be okay for the purposes of a test, but I don't want to run it for too long. We'll run it just long enough to prove the point, and then we'll stop the charge. Okay, in our charger mode, we're going to go and hit enter on the LiPo profile that's highlighted from the start. We've got to go into the charge current and raise that all the way up to 18 amps. Okay, there we go, 18 amps. And I have the cutoff voltage set at 4.15 volts. We're not going to hit that because this is just a test, but I'm going to hit charge and go, and here we go. Now 18 amps from the charging battery is nothing. This thing can do 150 amps all day long. That's nothing. All right, it jumped up to 17 amps pretty fast. "95 degrees on the screen. Only 85 degrees on the output, so nothing to write home about there. Don't know why it's not hitting 18 amps. But we are at 395 watts, so we're right there at the peak. Let's take their numbers and check their work. 23.15 times 17.25. That's 399 watts. It's right there, 400 watts. All right, 23.23 times 17, whoops, 23.25 times 17.23. It's 400 watts. It's right there. And their math is showing pretty close to what I'm showing. Little fluctuation, but it's right there. All right, let's take one more temperature test real quick. 102, 83, 85, 87, 87, 85. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. We hit the maximum wattage specified by the device, so I'm going to leave it with that. And I'll say that's sufficient to pass the test. Okay, regarding the charger itself, it's got this jog dial on top that also acts as an enter button. There's an exit or escape button down here. The jog dial feels fine. They have these little ridges on the top to help grip your finger. I think it would have been cool if they would have put ridges on the side just as well, maybe something a little more bitey with a little more grip, but it's fine. It does the job. On this side, there's a lot that goes on with that thing. That's got a lot of functionality in that little connector, that servo connector. We'll cover all of it, but that's a servo connector for outputs and measures. That's a 5 volt, 2.1 amp USB for charging cell phones, tablets, cameras, that kind of stuff, which I think is awesome. I mean, it's really cool that they are thinking that far ahead just to put a little USB charger on these devices. Why not? It's awesome. I think it's very cool. On the back, you can see there's a dual fan layout with input marking 7 to 30 volts, which is also very good. It's nice to know, like, this thing will take just about any power supply I throw at it, and that's how I'll remember it. But it's nice that it's marked, so just in case you're not sure, it's there. And then on this side, you can see it's got the 8S balance port connector and the outputs for various functions, not the least of which is charging the battery. Okay, that completes the physical walkthrough. Let's take a look at the software. When you initially boot up the M8S, you're greeted with a dashboard that's got a charger, measurer, output, and settings icons, and we'll go through them one by one. In the charger screen, you depress the jog dial, and you see at the top there's a cursor. This blue line is a cursor that lets you select new and new. If you click on one of these, you can add a separate profile. So say you charge LiFe batteries on a regular basis, you can set that profile up with an end voltage at, say, 3.65. Cell count is auto, your charge current is 2 amps, and then that's it. So now when you go back out to the dashboard and enter the charger, you have that profile available at the top. If you want to get rid of that profile, you simply long press and hold it, and the charger erases it, and it's gone. So you can easily add a different profile or reconfigure it. So the LiPo AT, not sure what the AT, maybe it's automatic, not sure. The LiPo AT profile comes from the factory pre-configured, but you can change the parameters in here. So once you click on that, you'll notice the cursor jumps down to charge, discharge, or storage. And once you're down there, you can spin the wheel the other way and go up and change the parameters like end voltage, the cell count, the current, the discharge current, and so on. Then once you are back on the bottom row, you can switch the profile to either charge, discharge, or storage. I'll admit it takes a little getting used to. It's a little unusual navigation, but it does the job. I mean, once you kind of understand it and get along with it, it does the job. It's not a big deal. If I hit discharge, another pop-up comes up that lets you also go in and change values. So the point I want to make here is that when you're navigating around, a lot of what they do in this charger is configurable. You just have to be willing to spin this dial and try it out. So if you say you want to discharge to 3.45, you can leave it. I would never discharge mine that low. I'd say 3.6 would be my number. So once you set that, you can have an input limit that determines the safe voltage for your connected battery. So keep in mind, if you have it on recycle mode and you set it to discharge, it's going to take the current from the battery that you're discharging and feed it into your power supply. Okay, so setting an input limit, it seems to automatically detect the type of battery, and it sets my input limit at 23.8 when I connect a 6-cell battery. So just set it the way you want it. We know that a 6-cell battery can go a little higher than that, so let's say I want to set it to 24. There we go. Now I know it won't peak, but I can go up to 24 volt on the power supply battery. And then you hit OK, and it'll start doing the work. I'm going to plug in a 3-cell battery, and let's test that real quick. The thing you have to remember about discharging using recycle mode, and I'm going to verify that that's what I have it on. I have discharge mode set to recycle right there. The thing to remember about that is you can set your discharge rate to whatever your discharged battery is comfortable with, as long as you don't exceed the charge rate of the battery you're discharging into. So the power supply battery becomes the limiting factor in this case. This is a 6L 5000, so 5 amps is my number. This 2200 can go way more than 5 amps on discharge, but I don't want more than 5 amps going into my power supply. So for that reason, when I go into discharge mode on the charger, I'm going to set the current to no more than 5 amps because that's the number that I want to limit the charge rate going into my source battery. So once I have that set at 5 amps, I can say I want to discharge to 3.6 volts and hit OK, and you'll see this jump right up to 5 amps. That's a very cool function, guys. Very cool function. You can immediately see the value in having a recycle mode because you're not relying on this little 20-watt internal resistor that they have in the system that will only let you discharge at half an amp. All right, very cool little feature. Just to finish up what's available under the charger option, you've got charge, discharge, and storage. And you can change your parameters for battery type, your end voltage, your cell count, your charge current, and your discharge current for any of the options you select or any of the tasks that you select. Okay, that's the charge menu. Now the measure menu. In the measure function, you can see there are options for battery, PWM, PPM, sbus, and ESC. In the battery mode, when you press OK on the jog dial, you're brought to this screen that's got a couple of different options. You really got to pay attention to this cursor. See how it says mode, voltage? If you press the jog dial, you can change that to other options. So pay attention to what that cursor is doing, and don't be afraid to hit go on that jog dial, press down on it, and that'll give you options to change things. So under mode, internal resistance, I'm going to select yes on that. Then I'll hit test, and you can see I've got an internal resistance readout on the right-hand side. It also shows me a percentage for the charge, total resistance, delta between the cells, and the temperature of the battery. Okay, go back up to the mode and press the button and go back to voltage, and then under voltage you have the option of hitting balance, and then when you do that it balances your cells for you. Super nice function. I didn't know about that when I got this thing, but that's a very cool function to be able to balance your batteries, and mine were pretty close already. Okay, next option is PWM. So this says press OK to measure PWM of receiver. Okay, with the Orange RX receiver connected to the output port on the Toolkit RC, I've got a servo connected to the elevator channel, and when I operate that, we can see the pulse width measurement on the screen. So 502 to 2445 with a 1785 at idle. I'm not sure I believe that because I think on my radio it should be 0 to 2000, so that warrants a little bit further work, but I'm going to keep moving. Unfortunately, I have no PPM devices, but I do have an sbus device. I've got this FrSky XSR receiver. This is a tiny little postage stamp size receiver that's bound to my radio master. So I've got it on sbus right now, and I'm going to hit go on that. And we can see in here, when I move the throttle, you can see right now. See, this range is believable. This one makes a lot more sense to me. I've got a range on the throttle between 172 and 1797. And then as I move my sticks left and right, you can see channel 1. I've got 180 to 1800. I've got 179 to 1800. This one makes a lot more sense to me than that PWM output, by the way. And then I've got a 3-position switch on channel 6, and you can see that operating. So the very useful thing in all of this is that if you are using an sbus configuration, this device can help you ensure that you are seeing not only a bind to your receiver, but that your channels are mapped the way you believe they should be mapped. Very convenient because sbus receivers, there is no PWM output. You can't just hook a servo up to it and see what you're doing. So very handy to have that capability. All right, so that's sbus, and that works. That looks like it works great. Next up is the ESC measurement, and while I don't really think this is a useful tool in terms of doing measurements like I take on the Judge or with a real watt meter, I do see value when you're putting a plane together of being able to do things like test an ESC, make sure your motor's spinning the right direction, that kind of thing. So here's the way this works, because there's very little information in the book or online about how to do this. So what I've got here is an ESC connected with an extension lead. That extension lead goes over here on the left-hand side on the output port. Now I've got the ESC connected to the motor through the normal bullet connectors. I made myself a back-to-back adapter. These are the same types of plugs you find on the battery itself. So all I did was solder them together back to back. And then on the right-hand side, you plug into the output port, and then you can connect your ESC. Okay, so that's the wiring. Your servo lead from the ESC goes into the left-hand side. Your power lead goes into the right-hand side. All right, now once you've made those physical connections, you can go into the toolkit and hit start. And when you do that, you hear your tones, and notice the throttle is highlighted in red. You can use a jog dial now to spin up the motor. So you see I've got 20 watts, 8 amps, and it works. I mean, it works to verify rotational direction on an ESC. I suppose you can spin it all the way up. So, I mean, it is spinning, it's going. I wouldn't want to have a prop on there right now, but it's definitely going. So that's the ESC test function on the Toolkit RC. Okay, that's it for measure. Next, let's take a look at output. Under output, this is the one that blew me away. It's a power supply. So I'm going to connect this. I'm going to put my adapter from my ESC test back in here so I can actually get to the leads. And here's where you can come in and set the voltage and the current. So let's just say I want the voltage to be, I don't know, let's try 4.5 volts. And I want to limit it to 0.5 amps. So I'm going to hit start, and you can see right away the meter says 4.5 and 0 amps, of course, because I have no draw on it. And I've got my multimeter, and we'll just take a reading and see what it's putting out. 4.5. You can't complain about that. I was kind of blown away with that. I just thought it was a really cool feature. Let's try something higher. Let's say you want to test out a FPV camera at 12.5 volts. There's 12.5. 12.5. Can't argue with that. Can't argue with that. That's a cool feature, man. I think that's really cool. It's a built-in little power supply that's configurable. I mean, it's awesome. That's a cool thing to have. If you do any kind of electrical work at all, you can understand immediately why that's such a cool thing to have. Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, there are some other options in here. When you put the cursor under custom and click go, you can move it to a Mavic 2 battery charging profile, a Mavic S, and a Phantom, and an Inspire. So very DJI focused, but you can use this apparently to charge DJI batteries. Okay, now we can output PWM. So in this mode, I'm just going to connect a servo. This is a servo centering tool. In the opening screen, I had a servo tool, and when I use them, this is what I normally use them for. Right now it's going to be centered because it's a 1500, but you can make adjustments. So you can use the dial to center manually where you want it, or you can come up and put it under mode, under auto 1, you can see it does a sweep. Auto 2, it does a faster sweep, and auto 3, an even faster sweep. So you can use this to verify your servos. You can also specify your range. And if you remember earlier, I was a little concerned about the range on my radio, but you can specify the range between 1000 and 2000, and you can change the cycle time. Okay, for PPM and sbus, I don't have any PPM or sbus devices, but if you go in and select sbus, you can control the output pulses for sbus devices right here. So this is kind of like a manual servo tester for sbus. That's what it is. And PPM will be the same thing. You can set the range for PPM and have your servo or the PPM connected device move. Okay, so that's it for output. Finally, let's check settings. You can go in and set the lowest input. So you want to set that to be the safest number for the battery that you're predominantly going to use. I'm using a 6L as my input. If I selected 3.5 volts per cell as my lowest input, I would set this 3.5 times 6 is 21 volts. That's where I'd set my lowest input to protect the battery. Same thing, input power, you can control the maximum there. You can set safe temperature values for internal and external. The safe timer option lets you plug in a hard-coded stop so the device won't operate in whatever task it's performing for longer than this safe time. I leave mine set to off. Generally, I don't worry about that. Discharge mode, this is where you can select recycle external. By the way, you can hook up an external load to this. So if you have an XT60 connected external charger, you can hook that up to this and control your discharge through that as well. You remember how I was making those dischargers with resistors? You could make your own and use this as a control mechanism for it. So if you want to get creative. And then if you want to use internal, you're limited to something like 20 watts. It's really low. Idle beep, 5-minute idle beep. So if you're idle and not doing anything, it'll beep at you. sbus values, width, and origin. I'm not that familiar with sbus to be able to explain it, but if you know sbus and care about such things, you do have an option to change that here. The backlight, you can set the brightness to whatever you want. I like to leave my buzzer off, but if you want to leave it on, you can hear that we got clicking now. I like to leave it off. It's too much clicking for me. Continuous work has to do with this idea that when you have a work in progress and you disconnect a battery and reconnect, it'll go back to work. I'd recommend turning that off unless you really know what you're doing. And the reason I say that is because I was doing some preparatory work for the video and I connected a battery, I ran a function, I disconnected the battery, reconnected the battery, and the thing went back to work discharging it. So that's what continuous work is. So I would recommend leaving that off unless you really know what you're doing and you want that to be on. And then work completed, so if you have completed a charge or discharge, you can either have it end or trickle. Trickle's not a bad idea because it lets the charger kind of balance things for you over time. And then knob wheel options, you've got slow, normal, and fast. I've had mine set to normal. I think fast is probably better. I've messed around with both. I like fast better. Theme style, you got dark and light. I've used both and I really do not like the light style. It's kind of hard on the eyes. I like the, even in daylight. Maybe in daylight it's better, I don't know. But I think for me, I will be leaving my theme style at dark. And then you can change the language. And I think if you long press here, it sets everything back to defaults. Okay, so that's a full walkthrough on every option on this thing. Okay, the last thing I want to do is I've got a 3-cell battery that is close to peak it's at, I don't know, 4 volts, I think. So I want to just finish the charge off with the Toolkit RC M8S and see how it does in terms of balance and with the correct output voltage. So I'm going to run this and then speed up the video so you guys don't have to watch the charger charge the battery. And then when it's over, I'll come back and we'll take a look at how it did. And remember, I have my voltage set to stop at 4.15 volts per cell. So we're at 4 volts per cell now. One thing I have noticed about this charger too, before I speed up the video, is that it doesn't hit the amperage exactly. It's more like a suggestion. So I said 2.2 amps, and this is reading 2.26, 2.7, 2.5. I mean, it's not going to harm the battery. I'm not worried about that. But just pointing it out that it kind of wanders around a little bit more than most chargers that I'm used to. All right, I'm going to speed this up and we'll come back and check it out in just a little bit. Hey, one thing I forgot to mention while you're charging, if you long press the jog dial, notice the screen pops up at the bottom with the cursor highlighting the amperage. So you can change that while you're charging. So say you want to go from 2.2 to 2.5 amps, you can do that. And then when you turn the jog dial, it goes back to the screen where you can see how many milliamp hours are put back in and what the percentage of charge is and so on. But we're getting close now, 4.1, 4.09, we're almost there. I'm going to speed it back up again until we get to the end. Okay, fast charging is finished, and now we'll go into a trickle mode, but I'm not going to allow that. We're just going to cut it off and we'll disconnect it. All right, I've got my cheater plug connected. Remember, 4.15 is where I cut it off. Okay, 4.14. And again, I don't have the resolution on this Fluke, so that could be 4.149 for all I know. I don't know. What'll be more important to me is that they're all 4.14. That'll be more important. Okay, that one's a little low. 4.13. And 4.14. Okay, I'm going to call that successful. 4.13, again, it could be 4.139 and the others could be 4.141. I don't know. So for me, that's not enough to worry about it. I'm okay with that. All right, the last thing to check is mains voltage. And remember, I did cut off at 4.15 volts per cell. So a 3-cell battery, that should give me 12.45 volts on the mains and 12.4. So we're off 0.05 of a volt, which again, I can live with that. I can live with that. We're right in that range of reason, and that's okay. I'm not going to sweat 0.05 of a volt. One thing I'd like to help you guys understand is that when Banggood contacted me and asked me to do a review, they said go check our website out and pick what you'd like. What I want to be clear about here, if my recommendations hold any weight with you at all, is that I went through the entire portfolio of Banggood RC products, and this is one of the devices I picked out. The reason for that is because of the capabilities in this very small form factor. Palm of my hand charger, 400 watts. It's got unbelievable measurement and output capabilities. The screen looks very good to me. The resolution looks excellent. In fact, it looks quite a bit better than videos I've seen of this device in the past, which have kind of turned me off from Toolkit RC, to be honest with you. And I will admit that the interface takes a little bit of getting used to. It's a little unusual, but once I think you adapt to it, it's all there. And this is a fully functional device. I will definitely be spending some quality time with this. This is one of those things that I think winds up almost possibly in a tool bag, weirdly enough, because imagine putting a plane together on your workbench. You can use this to check your servos, your ESC. You can use it for a power supply if you need to power up a device like a receiver. You can charge a battery really quick with it. You can use it as a discharger. So this thing has a stunning amount of capability in it. And if you use my affiliate link and the coupon code that we've got, you get it for 39 bucks. I think it was December that I did my review on the UP610, and I thought that was a pretty good deal at 25 bucks. At $39, this has double the wattage and a host of extra tools that are not available on most other chargers. I'm definitely happy to have this M8S in my bag of tricks. I think it's a very competent little device, and I'll spend more time with it and maybe get to know it a little better. And if you know what was going on with that PWM output, leave a comment. I'm not sure enough to be able to make a hard statement one way or the other. I'm sure I'm probably interpreting something wrong, or maybe even did something wrong in the test. So if you know what happened there, definitely leave me a comment. Other than what I saw in that PWM test, every other thing on the device worked the way it said it would work. You know my philosophy on that. Do what you say you're going to do, and this device performed. I'd like to say thanks to Banggood for sponsoring this video. It's very kind of them to send hardware out for me to do reviews so you guys can see what you get before you buy. And that's always been one of the primary objectives I've had for RC video reviews, is to try and show you what you get and to give it an honest assessment. So thanks, Banggood. I appreciate your support of RC video reviews. If you're interested in picking one of these up for yourself, don't forget to hit my affiliate link and use the coupon code. If you've liked this content, I've got great news. Since I've started talking about it, we've lowered our subscriber versus non-subscriber view rate from 70 down to 64%, which is awesome. What that means to me is I want to welcome all you new people who are hitting subscribe and joining the channel. Thank you. It really does help videos like mine get placement. And for those of you who are in that 64%, come on, hit the button. You got to hit subscribe. It encourages us to do more and to produce more. And it gives retailers out there an idea that, hey, this guy is an outlet for eyeballs. So if you want to see more of this type of content, it helps if you hit that subscribe button. Well, that's all I've got for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take it easy. And a handful of others. So make sure you take Banggood.com carries a full to take a little bit of a discount. What, you don't even know what the discount is. I have a affiliate. Come on, John, get it together. Models by Toolkit RC. I do have an affiliate. If you're in the market for a Toolkit RC M8S, you're going backwards. If you're in the market for a Toolkit RC, you can get this charger right now for 39 bucks, which is a steal. I mean, you can get this charger right now for 39 bucks, which is a flat, you can beep, 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 beep. It supports a range, it supports a wide range of battery types it supports a wide range of battery types, including LiPo, high voltage, Life, and Li-ion batteries in 1 to 8 cell formats, and then it also supports, see, that's where you got to start making breaks. The charger supports a wide range of batteries, including beep. I want to get focused on, I want to run a charge and hit this thing pretty hard. So let's get into that.